Fortunately, we still have a long way to go with Hurricane Beryl. What's going on, guys? Certified meteorologist Jonathan Kegas back with you. Unfortunately, the next area up is going to be Jamaica. We're having some of the outer bands come on to Puerto Rico, into the Dominican Republic, certainly some big swells, but the direct impacts are headed for Jamaica as we get into Wednesday. We're going to break down all of the potential impacts for you. Then, closer to the end of this video, stick around for this if you're tuning in from the United States. The impact, at least the potential impacts, are increasing. We've highlighted this over the last couple of days that the Bermuda high, or the higher of the southeast corner of the United States, is weakening a little bit, which will give it the opportunity to lift north. Now modeling is suggesting that might just happen. Then we'll break down what's going on with Invest 96L. The good news in this video is that that is weakening. That is getting eaten alive by some of that Saharan dust that was just too far north for Beryl, unfortunately. Hit that subscribe button if you want to stay updated on all things hurricane season and weather. There we go with the latest on Beryl as we head towards 4 o'clock Eastern time. Again, it's certainly not a walk in the park for us in the Dominican Republic, and while we're not going to take the worst of the worst, we are getting some very, very heavy rain, certainly also into Puerto Rico. The waves are very big, some storm surge flooding going to be likely as well. We've been talking about this in our live streams on Tropics Watch Live over the past couple of days. Also really watching again for the extreme southwest corner of Haiti for some of that heavy rain to slide through. And then Jamaica. We continue to watch Beryl slide ever so slightly to the north and west. The movement continues to be out of the west-northwest at 22 miles an hour. And again, as of that 2 o'clock in the afternoon advisory, we have a very strong Category 4 hurricane. So I want to show you the official forecast from the National Hurricane Center. We keep on highlighting, again, what the cone means. It's super important to understand that. This is the official forecast from the Hurricane Center. And again, that means that the center can travel up here, or right smack dab in the middle. It's to account for some wobbles and for some forecast uncertainty. So for the instance of Jamaica, for the example of Jamaica, as we are likely going to have direct impacts from the hurricane, the center can go up here, which may end up being the best case scenario at this point. We would get a lot of the storm, but the worst part of it would be north of the island, kind of bisecting or going right down the middle between Cuba and Jamaica. If it goes down here, I guess that's okay too, but we're still going to get the brunt of it, and you're on that right side. Being on the right side is the worst part of the hurricane. So at this point, we really need it to really deviate from the forecast and miss us that far south. Again, really, this is ugly news for the island of Jamaica. Notice, again, the northern end of the cone has shifted north from when we talked. And again, we talked about this, that some of the high resolution modeling, the European model, suggested that we would have that center get very, very close to the southeast corner of Jamaica. Nonetheless, expecting to be a major hurricane if it officially comes on land anyway, to be a landfall, regardless if the center comes on shore or not. Big time hurricane coming down the pipeline. Going forward, again, that's either going to be Category 3 or Category 4 at landfall. Then we'll shift our attention to the Cayman Islands. Here we go, expected to cross us as we get into early Thursday morning. Really, conditions start going downhill late Wednesday night. That's going to be a Category 2 storm. The potential for that anyway, crossing through the Cayman Islands and then working its way eventually towards the end of this week, really toward the 4th of July on Thursday evening and into early Friday morning to the Yucatan Peninsula, Cancun, Cozumel, as a Category 1 storm. So there will be weakening. I'm going to show you why there's expected weakening with Beryl coming up in just 1 second. But then the uncertainty starts to come as it emerges again back either into the Bay of Campeche or into the extreme southwest of Gulf of Mexico. You see that the official Hurricane Center forecast cone now reflects a lot of movement here on the right side of the cone. We talked about this really last week, that I thought that this part of the Gulf, the eastern Gulf, would be protected by that chunk of high pressure. And while it still would take a very aggressive turn to get to Louisiana, I talked about how it was going to be the western Gulf Coast and then certainly the eastern side of Mexico that were going to be in play from this. So again, there's still some uncertainty. I'll show you some of the modeling and the steering currents that are changing in just 1 second. But again, everybody really from Louisiana into eastern Mexico need to be watching that system coming through. It's only reflected, quote unquote, again, to be a tropical storm, and that would be lovely if it is a tropical storm in South Texas because we do need the rain. Don't want anything too strong wind-wise, but we all know it. The Gulf is jet fuel. Everything is above normal. And if we do get a slow-moving storm really to go in this direction, maybe up toward Houston, there's a lot of extra water, a lot of extra time spent over that warm water, so a stronger storm would be likely the further north it goes on that official hurricane center track. So I want to talk about why the weakening post Jamaica, or really why it's reached peak intensity. That would be at 165 early this morning with that 8 o'clock advisory. We had that 165 mile per hour category 5 storm. It's the wind shear, at least. It's battling that shear as we speak, coming at it from the west. That's where we have the darker red here. That represents the stronger wind shear. And that is something that's going to stay with it now for the next couple of days as it gets into the Western Caribbean. Wind shear and Saharan dust, also two things that are going to impact Invest 96L. The dust has kind of gobbled it up. Again, Beryl was way too far south to get involved on that dust. But thankfully, 96L still coming towards the Antilles, unfortunately, but it is going to be on the weaker side. I know we don't really need anything after Beryl. The other thing is some drier air. So I want to bust out the telestrator once again. You see all this brown. This is the dry air that's currently hanging over Jamaica. Let me change the color. This is Hurricane Beryl right now. Again, you see all the tropical moisture associated with the hurricane. Watch what happens. Let me clear off my telestrator here. We're going to send this into motion. You can already see it here. This is going to be later Tuesday night. Look at this. Some of that drier air. Here is the center. I would love if this continues to happen. If we get some of that drier air right into the center, think of it just like the Death Star, kind of when they're going into the thing and they shoot the lasers back there to get it into that weakness. If we can get some of that drier air into the center, it's going to ingest that up, and that is going to be the start of a rapid weakening potential. Now, that has to happen first. Look at the model forecast going forward. It does have it fending off the dry air a little bit. This is going to be on Wednesday. We have a little bit still lingering there, but most of it still back off towards its west. So like it's done for most of its life, it's doing, unfortunately, a good job fending off the drier air. Maybe until we get into Thursday, we have a better shot here of trying to get some of that drier air to wrap around from the Yucatan Peninsula into Beryl. So I don't know if any of you guys have looked at some of the modeling. The trend has been, though, to have a stronger storm for Jamaica, a stronger storm for the Cayman Islands, and a stronger storm for the Yucatan Peninsula, likely because modeling is picking up that it's going to fend off that drier air and do a pretty good job. And when you have a Cat 5 storm, you need a lot to start to break that stuff back down. All right, here is where we stand right now, 4 o'clock Eastern time. I have my big toolbar across the screen. You see that here? I have a bunch of stuff. This is how we can track these storms live for you guys. But I brought it out because I wanted to show you, I wanted to bring out the measurement tool on my bigger toolbar. And pay no attention to the timeline here where it says 2 hours and 27 minutes. That would be if we're actually tracking a storm. But I wanted to show you the tropical storm force wind field here. That's going to extend from 245 miles, give or take. That's going to be in that yellow shaded color. Then we have the hurricane force wind. So let me pull back my measurement again, and that's going to be more like 70-ish miles. So that's how far the hurricane force winds extend out in the center. And again, we're likely going to see it cross like this or like this. So it's clear to see, even if the eye wall goes south of the island and we don't get an official landfall on Jamaica, we are still talking about those hurricane force winds extending through most of the island. So that's why it's critical to make sure that you are getting everything done. I think this next graphic illustrates that. This is the National Hurricane Center forecast when it comes to the percentage of hurricane force winds sustained. So sustained winds over greater than 75 miles an hour. And we have seen this number go up with something we've talked about for the last couple of days. The yellow representing a greater than 50% shot, especially that rust color up there. And then on the south side of the island, more like 60 to 70%. So those chances are increasing to reflect now for a stronger system and a more northerly system than the official forecast had yesterday. This is the model forecast that I showed you. This is the European model again for the winds. And again, the European continues to want to take the center right on to the north of Jamaica. So that's something to keep in mind. Going toward Cancun, in toward the Yucatan Peninsula, it's certainly a little bit stronger than what it was yesterday. Now, this would have arguing for tropical storm force, but again, the European is not the best model to look at for intensity. It's pretty good on track, but so that's why I'm showing you it. But in terms of intensity, it's not going to hit that right. You need to look at some of the hurricane models and make sure those hurricane models don't overdo it. So just a couple of things to keep in mind there when we're dealing with this. Let me back this train up, and I'm going to show you Jamaica real quick. To kind of give you a better gauge of what the potential wind speed could be. Got to move my pause point back, and here we go. So I'm going to take you forward again as we kind of update this in real time. You see that dark purple there? So the European model wants to have a landfall on the north side of Jamaica. There you go, right around Kingston. 118 mile per hour wind gusts being forecast there by the European model. So this is no joke. Again, we're familiar with Gilbert, Ivan back in the day, Dennis, or Dean, I should say, back in 2007. So we're used to some of this stuff, but it has been a while since we've had a hurricane this strong impact the island. I think impacts are certain. It's just who gets the worst of the worst. And again, if we take that eye wall and with an official landfall, it's going to be tightly packed there with the potential for, again, winds of about 115 to maybe even 120 miles an hour. All right, for anybody tuning in from the United States, specifically Texas and Louisiana, even Florida, we're going to be on the safe side in Florida because of this big chunk of high pressure. So here we go. It's hanging out. It's one of the reasons why we're going to be so hot, really in the deep south, over the next couple of days, getting into the 4th of July and beyond. Nonetheless, that big chunk of high pressure is helping it to steer west through the Caribbean. It's helping it to steer west into Jamaica and into the Yucatan Peninsula. As we move forward over the next couple of days here, this is going to be Saturday now, 4 o'clock into the afternoon. I want to point out a couple of things. That we have this gray area here. That's going to be a dip in the jet stream, so it's going to be a trough. And once that trough ejects out of Canada and into the Rockies, it's going to help to weaken the western side of that chunk of high pressure that's hanging out over the southeast U.S. So as our upper air data from weather balloon launches catch on to see how strong that trough is going to be, we're getting better forecast data going into the models, and it's showing something like this, that it's going to be a significant trough, and as that happens to erode the western side, it provides now a pathway for Beryl to lift north. The last few days have showed that these two chunks of high pressure, that, by the way, over LA and over the desert southwest, that's going to bring some big-time heat. We'll talk about that in a future video. But you almost see kind of splitting the two high pressure centers there. So again, really everybody from extreme southwest Louisiana to the eastern side of Mexico, unfortunately still in play. The intensity is going to be in question over the next couple of days, just because we got to see how it takes the Yucatan, where exactly it crosses the Yucatan. If it's further south, more time over land. If it just grabs the tip-top part there, right around Cancun or Cozumel, there's going to be more time spent over water. So again, a few more things to iron out. Hey, if you want to stay updated on the tropics, sign up for my Tropics Watch newsletter. It is free. I visit your inbox every Monday and as needed. So I'd love it if you sign up for that. Go to clickorlando.com/newsletters. You can also scan that QR code on your screen, and that will take you to clickorlando.com/newsletters, where you can sign up for free. Also, hit me up on the social channels. Super active with that. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comment section right here, or find me over on the Twitter and the Facebook thing. All right. Good news on the tropical front behind Beryl. What was looking like that we would get the D storm pretty quickly, it has now found that Saharan dust that Beryl snuck under. It has ingested all of it pretty much, and it is surrounded by it. There's also increasing wind shear out ahead of it. So now, as a result, there is a low shot for development. With that said, some gusty downpours are going to be coming into the Windward Islands and Barbados, something obviously we don't need after just taking a strong Category 4 hurricane in the Windward Islands. But nonetheless, at least there is some kind of sense that we're not going to be likely talking about another strong system coming through. The latest models on 96L for you, again, taking it right around at least north of Barbados. So this also should stay on the northern side of where Beryl went, but nonetheless, something that we are going to be watching over the next couple of days. Alrighty, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Jamaica, stay safe. You guys, unfortunately, are next up. We got you covered. Again, please, please, please make sure you're finishing up your preparations, and all of that. Make sure you're paying close attention to the weather. We have you covered here. Again, be safe. We'll be talking much more as we get closer to a potential landfall of Beryl, but nonetheless, direct impacts are pretty much no doubt at this point for the island of Jamaica. We're thinking about you guys. Alrighty, guys, hit that subscribe button, post in the comments where you're tuning in from, and we will catch you next time.